What's up guys, it's TechRaccoon back with another video, and in this video we're going to be talking about the CameTV H4 stabilizer and how it compares to gimbals and stabilizers in the year 2020. So the CameTV H4 stabilizer is a stabilizer which is made out of carbon fiber and folds up to a nice compact size, which means you can carry it in your bag very easily, unlike other stabilizers of its type. The stabilizer type here is a fully manual stabilizer, not a gimbal, which uses electric motors and has a little chip and computer in it to control the electric motors to keep it nice and stable. And so we're going to be comparing those because now the gimbals are kind of taking over the stabilizers with their much more modern technology. So the CameTV H4 stabilizer is just like something like a GlideCam or a Steadicam. All three of these stabilizers use the same technique of stabilization, while something like a Zhiyun Crane 2 or one of those type of stabilizers uses 3 electric motors to stabilize the camera. And there are both ups and downs to both styles. So some of the pros of using a stabilizer like the CameTV H4 stabilizer is that it has no battery. So for starters, it's weather resistant, water won't really affect it at all, while something like a gimbal, which uses electric motors and batteries, will get affected by weather and will probably get damaged. And then also it means you don't have to worry about charging it before you go out for a shoot or something like that, like gimbals, which you have to charge just before you go for a shoot. But gimbals do have a fair few upsides compared to stabilizers. The first upside is they are a lot easier to use, in my opinion. A stabilizer, you have to get the calibration pretty much perfect on it. If you don't get the calibration perfect, then the camera will slightly move to one side or the other. And that means you kind of have to keep your hand there, just keeping it from tilting from one side to the other. But if you're making a B-roll sequence or something like that where it just requires short clips, this shouldn't be an issue because you can just quickly get the short clip and it won't have enough time to slowly start moving to that direction. While a gimbal, since it's using AI and computers and all that to control the electronic motors, even if you get the calibration a little off, then it'll still be able to adjust to the camera's weight and everything using the computers and electric motors within the gimbal. And this makes it a lot easier to use because you can just hold onto the gimbal and point and shoot it wherever you like, and it'll be stable. While with a stabilizer, you actually need to put some thought into it and actually practice. I'd say you probably need to practice for at least a week with a stabilizer to get the full idea of how to use it and to really be able to get good shots with it. While a gimbal, you pretty much just calibrate it, put the camera on, and you'll be good to go because there's no real learning curve to it apart from try and walk stably, and that's about it. But that's very easy to do. While with a stabilizer, you have to make sure that your hand's moving the stabilizer in the correct ways, and it does take a lot of practice to get it right. So let me show you some of the shots I was able to get with the CameTV H4 stabilizer in this quick B-roll sequence. So as you can see, the CameTV H4 stabilizer, even with just a few weeks of practice, can give you some quite good shots. That sequence was shot at 60 frames a second, so it was slowed down half the speed, but it still gives you a good idea of the type of shots and the smoothness of the shots that you can get with this stabilizer or this style of stabilizer. So in 2020, which one should you get? Well, to be honest, I think that stabilizers are just slowly dying off. And I think that gimbals are really uproaring now. You'll see a lot of people buying gimbals, even just for their smartphones, which I think is a bit overkill, but whatever. So gimbals definitely are getting much more popular than stabilizers just because of their ease of use. And this also is a good thing because that means the price of them will be lowering. Because if you were wondering, the stabilizers are still quite a lot cheaper than gimbals, just because you don't have to factor in the cost of the motors and the computers and the apps to develop to control the gimbal. So all that type of stuff has to go into making a gimbal, while with the stabilizer, all you need to get is a really smooth bearing and an easy calibration system. So if I were to recommend buying either a stabilizer or gimbal, I would probably recommend going with a gimbal. Although if you do want something cheaper and you're not too worried about spending a few weeks learning the stabilizer, then I'd recommend going for something like a CameTV H4 or a Neewer stabilizer. They're also pretty good. And so all those type of stabilizers can cost quite cheap, under $100, like the CameTV H4 or the Neewer. Or if you want a better stabilizer, then getting something like a GlideCam is also good. But if you are getting into those expensive prices, I would probably recommend going for a gimbal. So hopefully this video helped you out in making the decision. If you did enjoy the video, drop a like on the video. If you didn't, drop a dislike. Remember to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.